Yeah, baby. We are live, and I'm excited for this episode because we're going to be interviewing a newly best-selling author. And Nada Ahmed, she has an incredible book called Determined to Lead, and we're going to be breaking it down. What her process was, why she decided to do it, how it's already shaping women's lives across the country. And I'm not going to waste any more time. Nada, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here and talk about this book with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation because I think back to where and when we first met, and you're like, I want to do this book. I'm excited about it. Is this really possible? Like, but I'm doing it. And I said, look, we'll get you there. We'll
Mm,
get you there.
mm,
And now here we are. You have a best-selling book, it's inspiring
mm.
so many people. And I want to start with this.
Yeah,
What made you decide that you wanted to write a book? What were you
yeah.
doing in your life before then? How has that impact? Like, kind of take me through the journey of your experience of what you were doing prior, and then what was the trigger that got you wanting to write the book?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Happy to go over that. Yeah, so I've been most of my career, I've been working in corporate. I've been working in energy, oil and gas, renewable sector, and working in these very engineering environments and trying to find my space there. And, eventually I've always been very ambitious and wanted to climb the ladder and, be that woman who is the trailblazer, who's able to make this path for other women and show them that you don't have to conform to be able to rise to the top, right? Like that's really been the core of my leadership and like role modeling that to everybody. And at some point, during the pandemic, my husband just started asking me this question, like, if you could write a book one day, what would it be about? And that's for the first time when I started actually asking myself, like, yeah, what is it? What's like really the core of me? Like, what's my secret sauce that I could give to somebody else? And that's where this kind of idea started materializing. One of the things that I'm often asked to talk about is leadership, and in particular, agile leadership. And within that, I wanted to kind of add that aspect of being this nonconformist leader, this leader as a woman in very male-dominated environments, but also, give space to other people who don't fit in sort of the general stereotype of what a leader usually looks like. And I realized that was going to be sort of the core of a book. If I was to write it, that's what it would be, right? But I was also very quick to, when my husband asked me that, to say, like, I don't have time to write a book. I do want to write a book one day, but, not right now. I still have so much more to learn. But the kind of thought just kind of stayed in my mind and it just didn't go away. And since I was a kid, like one of the most creative things that I liked to do was write. I was never really good at drawing or music or anything like that, but I really love to write. And I think this happens to a lot of people, that as you grow older, you get some feedback, and especially if it's in an area that you really like and enjoy, and if you don't get the feedback, like people are really liking it, then you kind of give up. And that's what I did. I grew up in Pakistan. And there I was always good at English writing than most of my peers because I read a lot of books. But then when I went abroad and I came to the US and I took creative writing classes here, my English wasn't as good compared to everyone else who were native speakers. And then I was taking like literature classes, and all the feedback I was getting was like, my English is not good. Like, I don't know how to structure like this analytical piece of work that we were doing. And so I was just like, okay, this is not for me. I'm going to focus on the analytical part of like engineering and math and sciences. And that's what I focused on eventually, and kind of gave up on writing. But then when this question was asked, I was like, you know what? I really like writing. And now that I'm like grown up, maybe I need to make some more time for that and explore that. So that was kind of the genesis of me actually then starting to take it seriously. But then I soon realized, and I know I'm going on a sort of a long-winded story here, but I soon realized it was hard to do it while I was still working. I was kind of getting stuck again and again. And that's where I realized I needed more space. But then more than space, I needed structure, right? Which is why then you came in the picture, and I was like, yeah, I don't think this book is going to get done. because I was just kind of getting lost and like getting this analysis paralysis, right? Like when you're just not moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you push through. And
I
then
pushed through.
we started working together, and, a couple short months later, your book's ready to rock and roll, right? And
Exactly.
so what I'd love to know now is, you talk about a concept in your book, agile leadership,
Mhm.
right? What does that mean? Why is that the premise? And why is that one of the big things talked about in your book?
So I became exposed to agile, working in kind of tech innovation environment, and my whole job was bring this agile way of working into kind of mainstream engineering, where we were very what we call waterfall, and our way of working was very slow and clunky. And I thought there's a lot that we can learn from these tech companies who were kind of testing and experimenting and like not really going for perfection, and working for an oil and gas company, like we do need perfection because we are building these like very complex system offshore, and we want the safety to be top notch. So there are many things that we can compromise on, but at the same time, I felt like we were very slow to change and adapt, as the society was changing around us, as the industries were changing. So my main job was bringing agile into those companies, but I soon realized that it was not only just about project management, but it was about leadership. And agile was really about a mindset. And I was able to really connect with that part of leadership. And so I started kind of talking about that, and I realized that a lot of people connected with that because it's very human-centric way of leading. So agile is kind of based on these 4 values that is about putting people first, people over process. And as important process is, I think it's really important to prioritize the human brain, right? And the people who are part of the process. And it's empowering them to make decisions while you're sticking to the process. So that's kind of number 1. The number 2 is about when we're talking about software development, it's really about getting a working software to your customers as soon as possible. And in sort of other realms of leadership, it's about, not going for perfection, but just whatever you're doing, make sure that it's value adding work. So those are kind of the core of kind of agile values that I wanted to bring in just everyday leadership.
Yeah, and it's so good because you're so knowledgeable about what it is that you're doing, and you share this a lot on social media. You're very active on LinkedIn, and you've been active since the beginning of your book. And then once you actually were writing the book, and then of course when you were getting ready to launch the book. What I'd love to know is, did posting on social media help you curate the book and help you kind of understand what ideas resonate most with people? Or was social media more for you to just allow people to know and follow the journey of you writing the book?
I think it was both. I think it's about finding my voice in many ways. I got to experiment a lot with LinkedIn, with writing, because LinkedIn is kind of one of those platforms where you don't have to make a video, right? You can really practice your writing a lot more and practice like what's really resonating with my audience. And so in a way you could kind of curate your message around that. And that's how really I found what I was going to focus on, who my core audience is going to be. And at the same time, kind of building that momentum as the book is coming out, you then can leverage that because you're, and this was, thanks to you, because you really encouraged me to do that, is to use my social media network to not only inform the book, but get people hyped up and excited so that, when launch day came, people were ready to buy the book.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that I've noticed, and you, I think, did it masterfully, is you were constantly talking about value-based posts of things that you mentioned in the book, but you didn't say like, hey, go buy my book before it came out. You were just like, in my book, I talk about these things. Let me know if you want to be part of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you did was you focused on value and educational content, while
Mm-hmm.
also inserting that the book's coming, the book's coming, the book's coming. And so they got the same value they would, but now you were also building your list of buyers as
Mm-hmm.
well, and your list of leads and list of people that were interested. And so when you did launch it, you went nuts. You went nuts. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about that. But before I do, I want to make sure everybody here if you're listening to this and you have not yet bought a copy of Determined to Lead, go buy a copy of Determined to Lead. All right. Mid-episode ad segment that wasn't planned. We're actually doing it live in the studio. So go to Amazon, grab a copy, Determined to Lead. And then if you really, really love it, make sure you leave a review so that more people can learn the philosophy and the values of agile leadership, because what you talk about now is just, it's so important. And I think it makes a big difference. And okay, we're talking about the launch. All right. We're talking about this. Now, you do something pretty cool for this. All right. You have a launch in America and a launch in Norway. Talk about how you were able to create and put together an international book tour from the get-go and be incredibly successful with both of them.
Yeah. It's a good question. Maybe through this conversation, we can understand what the secret sauce of that was. But I knew I had two hubs, Oslo, where I've been in the past 10 years, building my career, building my credibility, building my name here, and the US, where I've, spent a big chunk of my time, and I knew I was moving back here, and I have lots of followers and like family and friends here. So I wanted these two places to be where I made sure that I had a good launch and the opportunity for people to come and engage with me. And so a lot of it that had to do with, talking to people and make sure that you're messaging the book on social media, connecting with people. Oslo was easier because I had a really good network, and I had been kind of volunteering at this one organization called the Polyteknisk Forening, where I was leading one of their digital networks. So when it came time to do my book and have a book launch, they were like, we would be happy to have it at our location and, blast it out to our network that one of our, network leaders has written a book. So it's just really having that network and those connections, where often when you're just kind of giving to people, giving value to people, then when time comes for someone to be able to give to you, you can receive it, right? So it's like you kind of out there, people kind of say that you are kind of, just giving. You're not like getting people in debt, but you're just kind of waiting for when time comes and you can actually make a withdrawal and all these, I wouldn't say favors, but like you're actually adding value to people's life without expecting something in return, right? Because everything doesn't have to be transactional. And I think the book launch also was like just a perfect example of that. So I went out and I made sure as many people as possible could come, like mostly through my social media, but also because I've done a lot of fundraising events for nonprofit. I also know what really gets people out the door is when you send them personal messages, right? So you have to like reach out to them on text. You have to send them that one-to-one message, and not, especially today when there's so many events that are demanding our attention, that one-on-one really gets people to be like, you know what, Nada reached out to me, I'm going to go to her event. And so when the event happened, I was just blown away by how many people who showed up to support me, who have been through me over the past 10 years, right? From when I was like a nobody to when I started actually getting a leadership presence, and building myself a brand. And so that was amazing. Like just the people and just stepping onto the stage in Oslo, just surrounded by people who were just simply there to support me. And it just felt like I was home, right? And it felt like I could just completely be myself. And then Houston, where I have not lived here for the past 10 years, and I had planned an event. I was lucky enough to have my university, where I did my master's program from, say, we'd be happy to do a launch event for you as an alumni. And I was like, great, like it's a great university with a really nice location. Like that's the perfect launch. But I was a little bit more nervous about Houston because I was like, I don't know who's going to show up here. But so both events were very different events, but in Houston, I still managed to get a full house and 90% of the people that had not met me before, that I did not know, which was just a great confirmation for me that there was a need for this book and that my message is really hitting.
And you just shared those beautifully. And I was taking some notes here because I wanna kind of share some things that I'm learning from you, as you're doing this. And that's this, one of the things that we always talk about to people, and when people launch a book, they think, oh, I just got to promote it on social media and that's all I'm going to do, right? But one thing that is really important is you didn't just tap into social media, you tapped into the personalization of social media. And one of the things that I think is really, really powerful for people on your book launch is no matter how big your following is, no matter how big or how small your following is, you need to go for a book launch direct to the people, because that's how they're going to feel warm, appreciated, excited, and know that they're just not just another number or just another regular email blast or just another regular thing. And of course, you can't reach every person, but when you add that personal touch, your book sales go through the roof, the momentum, the word of mouth builds, and it becomes like this huge, huge thing. And so you did that incredibly well. Another thing that you did really, really well that isn't something people often think about is this. When people go to launch their book, what we often see is they're like, well, I need all these new readers. I need all these people that don't know me. I need to figure out, like, how am I going to get all these people to hear about my book? But the best place to start, and this is exactly what you did for both international experiences, is you went to the existing network you had. You went to the place that you were already involved in and said, hey, I'm doing this. Is there something that we can make happen? And guess what? When you have a book, it's one of the easiest things to get people on board with because they're so freaking excited for you. Then what'd you do in Houston? You went to the university that you graduated from and said, hey, I'm doing this. And they put together an event. And by doing that, you ended up finding 90% new people. And so I really want to applaud you, Nada, because what you've done is not only something that is incredible for you as writing the book, completing the book, becoming a bestseller, but just since the book's been out, you've been able to impact hundreds and thousands of lives directly because you were willing to put yourself out there, talk about yourself, call in some favors, ask for some things, and be proud of your book. And so I just want to take a second here to make sure that I'm celebrating the crap out of you and that you are also celebrating the heck out of yourself because you did it. And I just want you to know that it's an amazing, amazing accomplishment, and you should be incredibly proud of yourself for this up to this point.
Thank you. And it's very easy to forget because, like, on the 1 month anniversary, I was just kind of like feeling really impatient. And some of my friends had to be like, Nada, you just launched a book and had 2 incredible launch events. Like, you should be still like celebrating that, instead of thinking about like what's next. Cause that's kind of the society that we live in. It's all about what's the next thing, what's the next big thing, but not taking the time to really celebrate and give yourself a pat on the back that you've done a good job. You're right.
And I want to know, let's fall on to this celebration theme for a little bit. All right. Let's get into the present. Let's reflect on the time since your book's come out. All right. What are some of the wins that you've had that have come up? What have people said to you about the book? What are opportunities that are coming up? What are some of the wins that you've had since writing the book?
I have gotten numerous invites to podcasts, right? Because it's a great way for you to get exposure to new audiences. And once you have a book, people want to invite you on their podcast. So that's number one. Number two, people who have kind of been following me and I've been following on LinkedIn, they were like, you don't know when these things are going to cash out. But she was like, I'm organizing an event and I realize now is the time that I bring in Nada to my event to talk to my leaders about innovation, right? And she had just read my book. So that's kind of another great win. And then the third was one of my bosses who I'd worked with many, many years ago. He also had read the book and he said, Nada, I have about 30 women who report to me, and I want to make sure that they have a successful career in front of them, whether that's under me in my company or outside my company. I want to really be able to help them. What can you do for me? So now I'm designing this leadership program and like trying to think about like what kind of value can I add for people? And I didn't have all of these things figured out, right? But I knew I wanted to write a book. But now that I have a book, I can kind of connect it to a business that's actually adding real value to businesses and to individuals.
I knew some of these wins, but some of these are freaking unbelievable. I
Mhm,
mean, but that's what it is it's bigger than a book. Who you
mhm,
become in this process, the opportunities that come, you can't always predict how things will unfold, but you can control that you get the book done. And that's what
mhm.
you did is you put your head down. And how long did it take you, like from start to finish? About 6 months or so?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I would say less than that, right? Because a lot of it was just kind of waiting for like Amazon to approve it and the editor to look through it. But like, yeah, probably 4 months, I had most of the stuff done.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
incredible to see that.
Mm.
And this is just the beginning. You have so much more excitement coming your way, so many more lives that you get to impact. But I want to know this. Who have you become in the process now that, less than a year ago, we didn't even know each other existed.
Mm. Mm.
Now, you're a best-selling author that's impacting people all over the world. Who have you become, and what have you recognized about yourself, in a positive way that's evolved, or that's changed, or that's grown since taking on this book project?
I think many things, but one of the things that I wasn't aware of that people are now making me aware of is like, no, that this was a very brave book. And I was like, really? Like, was it that brave? Because for me, it was just like a book that I have to write. But they were like, no, that you bring in topics that are just very brave. And I'm glad you're talking about this. And that's not something one person said to me, but many people said to me over and over again, like people whose boards I serve on, or people I've had as mentors, or people who have just kind of followed me. And that's kind of what I've learned. Something that, sometimes when you're like a fish in water, you don't realize you're surrounded by water, that I've always in my life gone through this unconventional path, which to many people may appear to be very brave. And realizing that I'm role modeling that for other people, right? That they can show up with courage. And courage doesn't mean that there is an absence of fear, but that you take that step regardless.
Mm.
And what I'm discovering is like the true essence of vulnerability, because of course, we've all been inspired by Brene Brown on that, but really learning through writing this book what it means to be authentic and vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you're just complaining or ranting, because one of the things I really did not want this book to be was a rant, or like coming from a place of resentment, because that doesn't add value to people's life. What adds value to people's life is when I can tell them that, this happened and I felt very ashamed about it. Like, these were the feelings that I went through, but how did I overcome that feeling of shame that many people go through, right? Like talking about these very uncomfortable emotions that we often don't talk about, but by talking about them, you're letting people know that it's okay. We all feel like this, and there are ways for us to overcome it, because you're accepting yourself as who you are. And that's what this book has really allowed me to do, is accept myself fully.
Mm.
Like people who see me now, who saw me maybe 2 years ago, they're like, you're just, I feel like there's like this, this bounciness about you now, that you're just like more happy and you're just showing up completely unhindered. And I want every woman to do that. And I want every person to be able to do that, is show up as their unhindered, fully expressed self.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and so, I mean, that this book has allowed me to do that. And the second thing that it's really helped me do is, I mean, if I had any doubts that I'm not someone who's able to execute on my vision, or like not able to finish projects, like I have written a book. Not many people can do that. And there was a point when I was writing this book where I was really like, anyone who had written a book, I thought they were God, because I was like, it's so hard. I'm struggling with this. But now I've done it, right? So if anything, now I live life knowing that I can do hard stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. That is just splendid, and I'm so excited for you. You've mentioned adding value to people's lives a lot, and that's part of the whole framework around determined to lead. People over process, agile leadership. For someone that's listening right now who wants to become a better leader, or who wants to live a braver life, or a life where they know that they can do it, what advice do you have, or what's a tactical action step that somebody could take after listening to this show?
Yeah. So the first thing you can do is like recognize that, we all have that inner critic inside of us, right? And it's pretty normal to doubt the big dreams and the visions that you have for yourself. But it's recognizing when you have that inner critic talking, or when you have this negative stream of thought that's coming and taking over, and telling yourself, it's only temporarily, and not making any decisions when you're in that mind frame, right? Give yourself a day and wake up the next day, and then make any big decisions that you have to make, and invest in ways that you can be supported, right? You don't have to do this all on your own, whether that's through finding mentors or getting a coach, or, outsourcing some of the stuff. You don't have to be able to do everything yourself. The third thing is really learning about your strengths, who you are. I mean, that's what I talk a lot about in the book, is like, you don't have to be good at everything, but you have to identify what is the thing that you're good at. And every one of us have these unique abilities that we're really, really good at, our superpowers. Identify those, hone those, get better at that. And it's okay if there's certain things that you're not good at. Like, I'm not good at mental math, and that's okay. I have a calculator, and I surround myself with people who can like make sure that I'm doing the math right when it comes to my finances. But I am good at bringing people together. I'm good at challenge the status quo. I am good at thought leadership and getting people to think about ideas in a new way. And I want to keep on honing that, and I want to find my voice so I can inspire people to be the best versions of themselves. Mm. And the last thing that I often talk about in my book events is like, all you need to succeed is an unshakable belief in yourself, right? Like, there's nobody else that can do this but you. And all you need to do is just start taking those small steps, like just small actions, and they're eventually going to accumulate into something bigger. But you have to trust yourself.
Come on now. All right. So look, people that listen to this show are going to be very inspired about your story. Some of them are going to be like, I need to write a book. For the people that are thinking about writing a book, what would you encourage them to do, or what would you tell them to do?
Yeah, just start writing and get the help that you need. I needed help to write this book. So I worked with Jake to make sure that I have a good process. And there's a lot of information that's available today, but you just got to start taking action. I think the most important thing in getting this book done was momentum, right? Once you get into a habit of writing every single day, and you're getting that one chapter, second chapter, third chapter, and now you have your first draft. And even if it's a shitty first drafts are supposed to be shitty. It's okay, but you've got momentum because you have that draft ready. And once you have the draft ready, there's no going back, really. At least for me, I knew it was going to be done. But you've got to let go of perfectionism, because the second thing that really helped me, other than just writing every single day, was knowing that this was not going to be my only book. Because if I thought this was going to be my only book, perfectionism would have killed it. Because I would have wanted this book to have everything that I ever wanted to say in this book, but realizing, this is just my first book. And this is just the first iteration. I'll probably a few years down the line, or maybe even next year, write another book.
Absolutely. I mean, you were determined to finish this book, and you were determined to lead others in the pursuit of their journey. And you are somebody who knows their shit, simply put. You are very good at what you do. Your philosophies are tried and tested. The work you do, you live what you say. Your stories in the book are personal, but they're also very relatable. And this is something that is really incredible. You've done just an absolutely incredible job of getting the book out and inspiring a lot of lives. But this is just the beginning. Now you have the book, and you get to inspire so many more. You get to create new things. You get to work with companies like your old boss, who will inspire all the women that report to him, and all the people. And there's so many amazing things. But if somebody listening to this is like, I need you in my life, I want your book, I need you, just like, please, like, I am determined to lead.
Yes.
How do we follow you? How do we get the book? Yes. Tell us where to go.
Yeah. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. You'll find me through Nada Ahmed, Agile Leadership. You can also follow me on Instagram. My handle there is This is Nada Ahmed. One of the other things that I'm doing now is I have a lot of women reach out to me, and they are connecting and resonating with my message, but they're like, okay, what next? What next, right, for me? And so what I am designing now are these small mastermind groups, which are going to be intimate groups of people, of women, where we're going to get together and go through many of the things that I discuss in the book. And you get some one-on-one coaching, but most importantly, you get this group of other women who are also determined to lead like you are. And we create this mastermind where we take it up a notch and we really challenge each other. We hold each other accountable. And I have been part of masterminds before that have really helped me level up and take quantum leaps in my life and my career, and just be happier in general. And I want to create those environments for others. So if you're interested in joining the Determined to Lead mastermind, reach out to me through social media. And Jake can also put in my contact information. And I'd happy to see how I can assist you on your journey.
Amazing. Amazing. So look, you guys know what to do. Check her out on LinkedIn, check her out on Instagram, go to Amazon and buy her book. And once you read it, you're going to be like, shit, this was good. I need more. And that's when you can jump in onto the mastermind and get to work directly with Nada. I mean, she has done some incredible things. She has been named the top 50 women in tech in Norway. Like, she is the real deal. And this book will help you become a better leader, but it will also help you just enjoy the process of creating your dream life and doing things that are unconventional and doing the things that you ultimately desire. So make sure to go follow her, get her book, become part of her mastermind. And Nada, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was my pleasure, Jake. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, you guys, I'll see you on the next one, but you know what to do. Peace.